Trial Lawyers University, where the Titans come to train. Produced and powered by LawPods.
All right. Well, good day, my friends Johnny, Mo, Matt, and Alejandro. I am broadcasting live from Cabo San Lucas still. If you can see right in the background, that's a cruise ship off my balcony here. But we were all just in Cabo last week together, and Johnny, Alejandro, Matt, and Mo were all in the same group because this was kind of like an advanced boot camp, a coaching boot camp that we put together down here because, you know, this skill of being a great performer takes quite a bit of practice and discipline to learn. I mean, a great presenter performing, but a trial is a performance, and it takes a lot of practice and rehearsal. And so, can you hear those? You know, I'm out here trying to enjoy my day, and we got these birds going crazy in the background. So I might have to move in if these guys still keep it up out here, but hopefully just adding a little atmosphere, but not too much distraction for us all. But anyways, so we put this boot camp together and put these guys all in the same group because they were, you know, honestly, I try to set the groups by level of preparation, because the more you prepare, the more that you're ready, that you know the materials and you've rehearsed the materials, I think the more everybody gets out of it that's in your group. And so let me ask you, I'll start with you, Johnnie Bond. So Johnnie Bond, what were the highlights of the Cabo coaching boot camp for you? Oh, just so you know, Johnnie Bond, let me just introduce everybody real quick because I have a brain fart again. And sometimes I forget this when they got all these people on here. And so Johnny's a buddy of mine from DC. And he just recently did this boot camp a few months ago with Eric Oliver. And let's see. And then Alejandro is from Miami. And he did the Joe Free trucking boot camp. And that was down at the Pasea Hotel where we do our TLU Beach Conference every year. And Mo's done a lot of boot camps. Mo is one of my, he's almost like a special needs trial lawyer. He needs a lot of coaching, a lot of work. Spent a lot of time with Mo working on his game, doing focus groups and stuff like that. But because we did work on a case together for several months, that thank God Mo got a great result of like a $51 million verdict. Unfortunately,
but Dan,
we're still
put a positive spin on it. I said nobody does more boot camps than me. I'm the best.
Well, yeah, maybe there are a few that done some more than you, but I think you're up there with the highest results. But I think I attribute a lot to that to the mentorship and coaching that I provided per that case. Of course, you know, you got the verdict, but I take credit for it. That's how it is in this world. You're like, you get to keep the money, but I'm taking the credit. Most people are good with that, but anyways. And then Matt's done 2 boot camps previous to this one a couple years ago in September. So, and Mo's from LA, and Matt is from the great state of Ohio, Cincinnati more specifically. So that is our group. So now I got my quick introductions done. So Johnnie Bond.
Yes.
So what was your highlights of the Cabo coaching boot camp?
Well, I mean, look, Dan, first of all, it was in Cabo. So that was amazing in and of itself. But like I told you before, the first boot camp in Las Vegas, once I really got to see what was behind the teachings and the performance skills, my mind was blown. So what was great about Cabo is that we got to come back and work within this group, and all of these guys in our group, we really had put in a lot of time. So we were able to build upon our skills and help each other refine our skills. There were a lot of new revisions that were made that again blew my mind about the presentation skills that you develop and that you can deploy in front of a jury. And I don't know if it comes across, Dan, how powerful the presentation skills are, but I'm here to tell people, when you really understand what you're learning and what you're delivering to a jury and why, you'll see that you want to attend as many boot camps as possible. You want to practice as much as possible. These skills, they transfer into every facet of the litigation experience, from communicating with the client during intake to understanding the case from the client's position, jumping in their skin to understand what happened and how to tell that, and how to tell it in a consistent way that reflects what you're saying, and your body isn't doing one thing and your words saying another. So look, it's a consistent response from me when you ask me this, Dan. It is the TLU boot camp, the TLU skills are at the top of the league. Any plaintiff's attorney that's really serious about being in this field and achieving at the top of the level in this field, they have to be at the boot camps. They have to learn the skills. They've got to put the work in. And that's what we did. So, look, being in Cabo, working with some excellent attorneys across the country, working on our skills, perfecting our presentation skills, and learning, difference between our cross-examination tone and pace, the opening tone and pace, and then the voir dire, all of those different things. As you've developed it, you've put in place a lot of different ways to connect with the juries, with micro connecting, glance control, hand gestures. All of that comes across to communicate to the juror, like you said, bringing the unconscious conscious, or making the unconscious conscious. That's a powerful skill set. And once you learn it and once you get it, you're on a different level. So I could say more. We could talk about, the great environment being in Cabo, but that's where I am with everything. I'd love to hear from everybody else.
Yeah. And just so we're all on the same page, like I'm going to walk through this, not just, what we did out there, the boot camp, but kind of like each part of the trial skills that we teach, and kind of go as much in depth as I can. So that way, because people always ask me, like, what's this all about? Why is this, why do I need this? Or like, why do we have to, why is there so much preparation? I don't want to do the preparation. Most people it's amazing how lazy lawyers are. Like, they think that just somehow they got this law degree and all of a sudden they're going to be, dynamic in front of a jury. They get up and they stutter and their faces look like they're tight and they're about ready to like have a friggin' heart attack. But Mr. Nakajima, let me go to you next, because it's been like, I think 2 to 3 years since you've done a boot camp. And so even in your absence, though, you'll be happy to know that we had continued to work on our stuff as we did, at this one. But tell us, building on what Johnny started with, what would you like to add, Mr. Matt Nakajima?
Well, Johnny did a great job summarizing. I think it's a phenomenal opportunity, especially with the group that we had, to get to work with very good lawyers. Sometimes you're in different groups with lawyers of different skill sets. Everybody here is a good lawyer, and they practice and they've tried cases, and that's the beauty of it. But I start to see just how much better I could become, and I start doing things even unconsciously, such as moving my hands, making eye contact. And now when I watch great speakers, whether it be a TED Talk or a video on Facebook of Barack Obama, I start seeing the way that they use hand motions to create space, the way they go in and out of character, and the subtle things that make people great. And now I want to do that. And I realize that that's not just some overnight skill. I've tried cases. I've had some pretty good results. But now I recognize just how much better I can be if I really start practicing this every day. And I've actually started a small group at home, and we're starting next week.
That's great. And that's another thing we're talking about too, is, because part of the, the concept of all this, of doing this Cabo boot camp, was the only way, like, I can see how much I've improved from practicing and and the people around me. But like, really, I think we're all pretty selfish people. So we can really, we can really feel, engage our own movements. And the only way to get to greatness at any skill you want to master is practice. And the best way to practice this skill, is to be the teacher of others. And that was my vision doing this, because, in 2026, I want to do a lot more boot camps. And there's this big push by Uber to destroy our civil justice system in California. And so therefore, like this year, everybody that, wants to register will register through the CAOC, the Consumers Attorneys of California site. And so that way their 100% of their tuition will be put towards this cause, because it's everybody's fight. And it's critical that we win this fight, because if California falls, New York's next, and then, Texas and the rest of the country will follow eventually. Might take 10 years to get to Ohio or DC, but they're, they're a gazillion-dollar corporation, so they're not quitting. Anyway, so that's kind of the hope too. But my real hope is that you guys become great and help other people become great too, and pay it forward. Let's see, how about you, Alejandro? Because you did it more recently. What kind of what thoughts would you like to add? How about that?
I mean, it was just kind of building up off what the guys have said. It was just a boot camp like on steroids. I mean, just because the level of preparation, everyone had boot camps in their back pocket, had at least done them. So they were exposed to the preparation level, what it took and what it was actually going to be like at the boot camp. I think it just allowed everything to flow at a much higher level. We were able to get, into then the minutia and the details of why, the micro movements and the connections, which at the end of the day, what we're working on as skills is connections with everyone we're speaking to, which is why, it is so transferable in every aspect of our lives. And it's something that you could get mental reps and practice in, even when you're watching TV, when you're trying to see facial congruence of how an actor gives bad news, good news, when he's happy, when he's excited. Because at the end of the day, we get to be directors, performers, we get to write the music score, we get to control everything. And I think it's a disservice to our clients and our profession if we don't take advantage of all these tools to be able to get better at those things that aren't normal for us, because we're not normal performers by trade. We don't get up and, we haven't been classically trained on facial congruence or hand movements and connection principles and stuff like that. So it's a really good environment to get into the nitty gritty of why you're doing certain things, which, really helps me be able to take that home and be able to apply that across the board to a lot of different scenarios.
TLU Huntington Beach is going to be the greatest event of 2026. There's going to be 4 lecture tracks, 8 workshop tracks with the top trial lawyers in the country. On Tuesday, June 2nd, there's going to be a golf outing, pickleball outing. That night, we're going to have a dinner at the La Rea. We're going to buy it out. Everybody gets a chance to meet each other beforehand. And then during the conference, of course, we do a full breakfast, full lunch, and theme parties every night. This year, we're going to be utilizing the pool area and the restaurant for more of the parties. And we're going to have an adult swim one night, a Satch Oliver party on Friday night, and the last theme party is going to be a 80s Run DMC Adidas jumpsuit. It's going to be the greatest. And last year we had over 800 people. This year it's going to be over 1,000. So if you want to be part of it all and you want to stay at the Paseo Hotel, don't delay, because it sells out fast and then you're going to be in the overflow. Can't wait to see you there. TLU Beach. Mohamad, so this is, I don't know, maybe your 4th or 5th boot camp. And so what kind of evolutions did you experience and see in this program from the last time you did it, just, maybe 4 months ago?
To Alejandro's point, we focus on literally every single detail. And so it was incredibly hard, at least for me, the special needs job. It was a very tough boot camp because we were so intent on getting every single thing right. But what it taught me, I learned something from Johnnie and then from the video, watching the video, something I do my whole life that pissed me off when I watched it on the video. I wanted to throw something at the screen and I was like, wait, that's me. I want to throw something at, where I closed my eyes to the jury for like 3 seconds. And it looked so arrogant. Like even my own self, when I watched that, I was so upset at the guy on the screen, not because I was upset about how bad I did, but I was physically upset internally about what that guy did to me, and that guy is me. Like just turning your eyes and doing that, it looks so disrespectful. So I think focusing on every detail is what helped. And what it comes down to, and I think this is where trial lawyers kind of screw things up, is we live with the case and our client lives with the case since day one for 2, 3 years, 4 years, sometimes 5 years. Then we get to the jury and we just expect them to just be as upset, as sympathetic, as empathetic, as know this guy's story, know his nuances or her nuances. And we get confused why they don't understand what's going on. And I think the point of the boot camps is you struggle now so that your jury doesn't struggle to understand what the hell's going on in your story. And so the jury is comfortable. You want to make the jury comfortable so they can understand, that they can learn. Because if you're looking everywhere, not making eye contact, doing that, then the jury is straining the whole time and just being confused. And I've seen jurors do that in my cases. Unfortunately, I've been able to pick up on it and correct it. But you don't want the jury to be uncomfortable. You don't want them to be confused. And so I think that if you put in the hard work here, and it is super uncomfortable. I mean, I wasn't happy waking up every day. I was dreading the sessions because you literally have a camera on you. You have your competent trial lawyers judging you every 5 seconds. It's not comfortable at all, but imagine what the jury's feeling when you're up there just talking about all these facts and mangling all these different, mixing and matching all these facts that they don't understand, and righteous indignation about a guy they don't even know. So that's what kind of I got from it.
All right. And we just got joined by Jared Smith out of Kentucky. So apparently the clocks are a little off in Kentucky, but we're glad that Jared was here because Jared is probably, in this group in front of me, I have to say, with all congratulations, the most improved presenter in the group from where he started. And everybody starts where they start. I mean, I stuttered for the first 6 months of my legal career. I thought it would never stop. That's where I had to start. Nobody picks their starting point when it comes to being a presenter. But we can all pick where we end up and how much progress we can make and how fast we want to make that progress, because, it is hard work to train. It takes discipline. But, when I used to complain as a kid to my dad that, school was hard, he'd be like, Dan, school's not hard. Being stupid, that's hard. Or, especially when I started working when I was 10 years old, cutting lawns. I was like, man, at the end of the 6 hours out there at 10, I was like, work's hard. He's like, Dan, work's not hard. Being poor, that's hard. So getting ready for trial isn't nearly as hard as the regret and suffering of losing a trial. And more than money is letting somebody down who trusted you with their lives, and their futures and their ability to take care of themselves and their families. So, it is hard work. We are going to cover because I really look at trial and being a great presenter is that there's 4 separate but interrelated skill categories. The first one is, and I'm going to go through these in the order that we teach them, because it's very important, the sequencing of the content that we're learning. And that's why we start out with the cross-examination. And then after we teach the cross-examination, the next thing is the presentation skills, which are opening statement and closing argument. And then after that, we teach the witness preparation and direct examination skills. Tip in most boot camps, but in this one, we went right to the voir dire. And so the new people there was a group that was doing it for the first time. So I spent a day with them working on the witness prep and direct because, that's just kind of the way the format works. Just to give everybody an overview. And then also we spent a day on Saturday, the last day, or not the second last day, is applying all these skills to our actual cases. Because it's one thing to learn the skill in the context of the preset case story. So the preset case story is a motorcycle/semi-truck crash. It's actually one of Joe Freed's actual trials. And there's a dash cam video for it. There's photographs. And that's to tell one story, but sometimes a lot of folks still, even if more advanced practitioners, have trouble applying that new skill set to their actual trial stories. And so that way, when we do that, it helps them understand the creation of space within the context of what they're doing. So let's start with the cross-examination. So in the cross-examination, this is about skills training, number 1, and content, number 2. And so the skills that we practice, and some of them seem very basic, like leading questions only, 1 new fact per question. We all know that. But if you read people's transcripts, if you read your own transcript, you can see how many times you violate that simple rule. And then after that is looping, which means to establish a fact and repeat that fact in the next statement. For example, doctor, you're a board certified medical expert. That's one statement. Then to become board certified, this requires advanced education. So that's an example of looping, to establish a fact and repeat it. If you watch the great trial lawyers, they're constantly looping all through directs and all through their crosses. It's like a connected chain or like a breadcrumb path that they give to the jury. After that, to cross-examination in the present tense. That is a skill in itself. Very few lawyers, even at the top of their game, can accomplish that. But when you do, it just becomes second nature because it forces you to visualize or imagine the cross. And so therefore you can actually create space or create the illusion of the truck moving on the cross. But it also forces the witness to picture the story, which makes it harder for them to be deceptive. And more importantly, allows the jury to visualize the story you're telling. Then after that is to drop the taglines like right, correct, isn't it true, true. Or if you need the tagline, to create a pause in time, a few moments, so it's slightly uncomfortable gap between making the statement and then simply saying true in the kindest of voices. To drop all the filler words like and, so, okay, etc. Because the majority of lawyers do that. And until you discipline yourself not to, you most likely will if you take the time to read your transcripts. Then using a flip chart effectively. And what does that mean? That means writing legibly. Okay? To write legibly takes practice and it takes the desire to write legibly. And then putting one topic per page. So that way you have to space things out. You have to size your letters correctly so that just you have one topic per page. And then finally, to control the attention of the jury. So you look at your flip chart, the jury looks at it. So they're getting the information both visually and auditorily. Beyond that is pacing. Most people, and breathing. It's insane. A little bit of pressure causes people to speed up and to stop breathing. And I think we all experience that, trying to give a 25 or 30-second statement on one breath. Because when people do that, first of all, their body becomes tight because they're running out of air. And then their voices lose power. They lose projection because there's no air to project. There's no air to push the voice out. And it causes like a stressful feeling. Cadence. That's another thing because you want to be, the goal is, let's just be honest. If we're honest with ourselves, the goal is to put everybody in a trance, right? To put the witnesses in trances, to put the jury in trances. And trance just means like they're into the story. And so, people talk about trances like hypnosis and this bad thing. Well, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about getting the jury to focus and be engaged in our trial stories, just like they're watching a movie, like, Star Wars or whatever, where they're into the story. And obviously these are real stories of people's lives. They're not, fictional, heroic stories, but still the story trance is what it's called. So those are really the skills of cross that we really focus on, and we focus on them and also using our hands, practicing keeping our hands relaxed. And that when we deliver the question to the jury, that we practice, that on the last word that comes out of our mouths, that our eyebrows raise like it's inquisitive. And that we have an inquisitive look on our face and our voice inflects up a little bit and our hands release. Oh, and that's the last thing that I forgot to mention is controlling our emotional state in cross. So many lawyers, you say cross-examination, they're like, "Rrr," and they just almost have like an aggressive posture. But I think there's really only two core emotions that dominate cross, and those are, of course, curiosity when we're laying foundations and disappointment when we're impeaching or showing bias. And so that pretty much encompasses the cross. And the way we all learn it is through a set design piece of the cross-examination of the defense medical expert. And so we break that cross-examination into 4 parts so that way we can all practice learning it one chunk at a time and refining it one chunk at a time. And that's where we start. And the idea of the defense medical examiner cross is that I call this a foundational cross because so many lawyers skip their foundations. They want to get right into the pummeling, but they don't lay the foundations to set up the impeachments, and the impeachment loses a lot of impact and power if you don't lay the foundation of why they should be doing it, the right way to do a medical evaluation as opposed to the wrong way or the biased way. And so this also is a foundational piece of cross because it teaches the core skills, and it can be adjusted for any expert, not just the defense medical expert, but it can be adjusted for a biomechanics expert. Or, Nakajima, I know you shared with me that you used this cross format in your most recent trial. What kind of witness did you have?
It was the medical standard of care witness in a malpractice case. It was a very well credentialed defense doctor who had testified probably 50 times live at trial, and he had never seen a cross like this. And it was amazing how not only did the judge get into the cross, but the jury, and they started to almost catch him when he was cherry picking facts and called it out before even I did. It was quite incredible.
Lake Tahoe, February 8th through 15th. It'll be our 5th year in a row at the same location. We got it dialed in. We rent out the 7-bedroom house on the lake. We train for 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the evening, and ski all day. It's great fun, great learning. You're going to work on your trial skills and on your case itself. So join us in Tahoe for the 5th annual TLU Ski Bootcamp. Yeah, nothing makes me happier when I, honestly, to feel better about myself and what we're doing. Then when I hear stories from people like my friends like Matt, or people call me or send emails about their results, because the game it's a results-oriented game, and it's one thing to practice, but another thing is to constantly be pushing ourselves to apply what we're learning and get those results. So what we're going to do is this, gentlemen. So I'm gonna call on one of you to do, because we've got 4 segments, and so we got 5 of you here, and so therefore, if you do the first segment, then we're going to talk about it, because this is designed to get the witness to lie early and often, and lie they will and lie they do, because every defense medical or defense expert we know that we're up against is a sociopathic liar. And so, in general, and the whole question I always used to ask myself when I was doing all my criminal cases, I'd always ask myself one question. When I got up there, I'm like, am I a better cross-examiner than you are, liar? That was always the tension point. I know you're a professional liar because you're a cop or you're a doctor that testifies for the defense, but who's better? So that was always, we got to challenge this ourselves. So let's start off. We'll start off with
Guys,
Nakajima.
I have to go.
Now see that?
I am sorry. I have to get off of here, but I hope you all have a great time. We have to go.
See that? This is what happens when Nakajima doesn't go home after the Cabo boot camp, just stays in Cabo and brings his family down. And his wife was not considerate and scheduled a boat trip for this same time. So goodbye, Matt and Matt's daughter. Have a great time on your boat trip in Cabo. See, I was going to give it.
Yeah.
Right. How they run. As soon as we stay cross-examination, they're like, oh,
no,
exactly.
I brought out the
smart
baby girl. Stop. All right. We'll see you guys.
All right. Take care, buddy.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye. All right. Johnnie Bond, give us the first segment of the cross-examination.
All right. You want me to stay seated?
You can stay seated like doctor.
All
You're
right.
a board-certified medical expert.
Okay. Doctor, you're a board-certified medical expert. True? Now,
yes.
I should have released the fingers, but let's do that again. Doctor, you're a board-certified medical expert. True?
Yes. All right, Johnny. We're going to work on this, Johnny.
No. Wait. Let me do it. I got it. Let me do it. I got this. Doctor.
See, this is why, Johnny, you've been practicing since you've been home?
Yeah.
You've already looked a little rusty. It's only been
she's annoyed with me.
All right.
It's a little drama. She's being shy. I'm being shy initially. Let's get it out. Doctor.
All right.
You're board certified medical expert.
Yes.
To become
To
board
become board
certified.
certified
To become board certified.
requires
This
advanced
requires
education.
advanced education. Yeah.
All right. I'll finish it up for you, Johnny, because I'm a little more practiced.
Yeah, you're a little bit more
This
oiled up.
education, it takes place both during medical school, so you look, you pause, glance at your hand, and after you get out. Is that true, Dr. Mohamad?
Yes.
All right. But while you are in medical school, you do take classes. One of the classes that you take is on how to conduct a proper medical evaluation. Okay, so that's segment one. That is, and then again, so we practice the hand movement, keeping our hand between directly in line with our chin and the chin of the witness, but just below it, and moving our hand when we speak, and when we pause, we inhale and our hand stops, and then we speak again, it moves out only towards the witness, which takes a lot of practice. And then at the end, to release the hand, and so the fingers flip open towards the witness, basically releasing the question to him or her. So those are really the skills that we start to learn. And also listening. That's why it's so important to practice with a live witness who's not going to say yes or true every time. So that way you practice this, waiting until there's a moment of uncomfortable silence, and then you just say true. But that's actually a great advantage for us when they don't answer right away, because it allows the information to sit there and just linger in the jurors' minds. And because again, this is not just about delivering the information, it's about delivering the information in a format that the jury can retain it, which is the key part, especially if you have a week or 2 week long trial. So, and then that's segment one. So segment two, we're going to define the proper medical evaluation, but we also start using a flip chart. Now, of course, we don't have a flip chart here, but let's just imagine we have one, because most people listen to the audio. That's very sweet of you, Mohamad, but it won't be necessary. I bet these folks can imagine that there's a flip chart. We most all seen a butcher chart. Mr. Mohamad, he's very, very accommodating fellow, though. We appreciate that. So here's the second piece. Jared, I'll let you be Dr. Smith. How's that sound? Dr. Smith, you're trained that a proper medical evaluation, it must be impartial. And so if you listen to the cadence of that, I pause right before impartial. And so that way impartial stands out by itself. And at this time, I would have my butcher paper here. The first front page would be white. I flip it over and it says proper on the top. Underline, I put number 1 and I write impartial in capital letters across it. And so I space it out so that it takes up the whole line. And I put a number 2 underneath it, queuing up the jury to keep them curious. So they're thinking, what's coming next? And now we're going to define impartial. By impartial, what we mean is that you're not an advocate for either side. And so we know that the mind can't process a negative. If I think, don't think of a purple elephant, well, you have to think of a purple elephant to not think of one. And so when I say you're not an advocate, I'm actually saying you are an advocate, which is the truth anyways, right? Because we all know defense medical experts are all advocates. So then the next line is, doctor, you're trained that a proper medical evaluation must not only be impartial, but it must also be objective. And so then I write down objective, and then I write a number 3. By objective, what we mean is that you don't cherry pick the evidence to support a desired opinion. Doctor, you're trained that a proper medical evaluation must not only be impartial and objective, but it must also be complete. By complete, what we mean is that you consider all relevant information. All right, then I'd write complete on that board there. And every time I turn, when I'm looping it, I turn and I look at the board and I use my finger to hit impartial and objective. And so that way it causes the jury to look at it. And every time I write on the board, I'm standing in front of it, but the jury's all focused on me and the board, or my back on the board. And then when I turn away from it, they're thinking, what is he writing? But they're thinking, I bet he's writing impartial. I bet he's writing objective. And sure enough, I am. And so therefore, it really gets just blazoned into their brains. And based upon those definitions of impartial, objective, and complete, let me ask you, Alejandro, in your entire career, have you ever had one defense expert who, based upon those definitions, was truly impartial, objective, and complete? No. Exactly, because they would be conceding that we are right because our case is just. And almost anybody I've ever come across has never had a defense expert that was impartial, objective, and complete based upon those definitions. But what it does is that defense expert knows that they're a liar. They know they're lying through their teeth, and they know that you have the goods on them. And so does the jury know that you have the goods on them, because you would not be doing this cross if you did not. And so you're basically drawing a line in the sand that, of the right way to do it. And you wouldn't be asking these questions if in fact, that if the guy had done these things, right? Because, one person said to me, well, what happens if the person did everything right? Then I'm like, then settle the case, because your case is bullshit if the defense expert's right. I mean, let's just be honest about it. So then that's segment 2. And again, we learn these things in smaller chunks because we must master one chunk before we get to the next. And that's why when I'm coaching somebody, I always tell them, master the cross, keep working on the cross, because the mastery of one leads to the mastery of another. And once you feel and understand mastery, well, it's a good thing. And you want to be, I think we're all competitive. We want to win and we want to be the best we can be. So segment 3 is, so let's see, I'll be Dr. Alejandro Gonzalez. Dr. Alejandro, the opposite of a proper medical evaluation, one that is impartial, objective, and complete. Well, that would be a biased medical evaluation.
You can say that.
And then I flip my sheet over so it makes a lot of noise. And now it says biased at the top. And I say, Doctor, you're trained and you know that there are certain risks associated with a paid expert's choice to conduct a biased medical evaluation. One of those risks is that the jury, so I turn and look at the jury at this point, is that the jury could be misinformed about the patient's condition. So I write number 1, misinformed, and then I write number 2. Doctor, you're trained and you know. And so I pause, I trained, inhale, and you know, creating a little gap in time. And so that's the example of stepping. Because if you're trained and you know it, then it's a universal truth. And the only reason that you wouldn't have done it this way is because you chose not to. So, doctor, you're trained and you know that if a paid expert chooses to conduct a biased medical evaluation, not only could the jury be misinformed about the patient's condition, but they could also be misled as to the extent of the patient's injuries. True? And so then I write misled. This is another example of stepping. Being misled is worse than being misinformed. And so we're more likely to believe somebody would mislead us if they previously misinformed us. And then I put number 3, again, creating the curiosity. Doctor, you're trained and you know that if a paid expert chooses to conduct a biased medical evaluation, not only could our jury be misinformed about the patient's condition and misled as to the extent of the patient's injuries, but perhaps worst of all, they could be deceived into undervaluing the human harms and suffering that were caused. True? So that's the end of segment 3. So it's misinformed, misled, deceived. Again, another example of stepping. If somebody's previously misled you, you're much more likely to believe they will deceive you. And then finally, we get to the conclusion. And I think every cross-examination, chapter, segment, whatever you're going to call it, chunk that you do should end with this. Doctor, let me ask you this question. That's called the refocusing move. It's like squirrel. It's like, or can I ask you this? So, doctor, let me ask you this question. On December 14th, 2022, you had a choice to make. So tell us all, what did you choose to do?
Proper evaluation.
A proper medical evaluation. So I flipped the page over. I said, so what
No,
you're
he's supposed
telling
to
us
say,
is,
I don't know what you mean.
I know that's what it doesn't matter. Because if he says, well, for the practice of the script, then we have the witness say, what do you mean? Because I intentionally going to ask an ambiguous question so that way I can spontaneously loop him. So if Alejandro, was not, starned or, mesmerized by the podcast, he was in this regular element. I know this is a big star moment, Alejandro. But if you said, what do you mean? I'd say, what I mean is, so that's a spontaneous loop, is did you choose to do a proper medical evaluation? One that was, and I flipped the sheet back over to proper, impartial, objective, and complete, like you were trained to do? Or, and I put my hand up, or did you choose to violate your training and conduct a biased evaluation, knowing, and I flipped the page over, knowing all the risks? This is where you say proper, Alejandro.
Proper.
All right, good. Thank you. See that? He's coachable. See that, Mohamad? Anyways, so
He did that on purpose to show the evolution of.
Right. So but that's the segments of cross, but all the skills are taught within that. Because then after that, because after that we train the opening statement of the motorcycle versus the truck crash, and so I think that like the evolution and the epiphany is for folks when they do the cross of the trucking case with the visual of the Google map. That's when things start to click. Because we never actually practiced that cross. So let me ask you, Johnnie Bond, because we did that before, but like applying the cross skills to the motorcycle case. How did that, what did that teach you about or help you further get insights on the cross skills?
So that was very interesting because I think that's the first time I've ever seen it set up that way. Right? We have the cross and we've basically going through the opening. It's again taking the jury, putting them in a trance as to what happened, basically taking them there into the scene of the incident, as well as leading with the leading questions to get the defendant to admit to each fact that you develop in each stage of the story. That's a little difficult, I'll say, but I mean, like, look, Dan, you had us work through all of the different phases, the opening, the cross-examination. This is where you start to apply all of those skills, creating space, glance control, leading questions, cross-examining the witness. That's probably more of the advanced applications of all of the skill sets. And I think we all had to keep working on it to develop it. But it's definitely like life-changing in terms of understanding how to do a different and creative approach to a cross-examination.
Well, I think what it really helps people understand and drive home the concept, my hope is that how important it is to imagine the story that we're telling on cross. Because if we can't imagine it, if we can't see it, nobody else can either. But once we can see it, then other people can see what we can see. So let me ask you, Dr. Mohamad, this piece of cross with the story of, because it's the story. So just so everybody knows the story that we tell, it's about a trucker Tom. So I try to make it easier instead of using the person. The trucker Tom is driving south on US 47. Then he pulls off and he's going to cross over the opposite way of the highway to get onto I-75. And there's a couple cars coming and those cars exit the freeway. And then trucker Tom goes across, but really it's so critical and it's so hard for lawyers to imagine the story they're telling because they get so caught up in the words and having every little word correct. And the words do matter, but that's why we practice. And the whole idea is even on cross, we want the jury to visualize the story that we're telling. And that's what this cross does.
Can I jump in right there?
Sure, Johnny.
Because I think it's important. Look, Here's the thing about the boot camp, in my opinion. Like, you have to practice. You have to practice. It's like an onion. There's layers to it, right? And like the imagination part, and you'll say it again and again, Dan, but like quite frankly, like it takes time to practice it to even get to that point. Once you've mastered your hand gestures, once you've mastered your breathing, once you've mastered the content, then I think you can start to practice with the imagination. And then when you start to practice with the imagination in place, that's when your skill sets develop into a whole other level. So I just wanted to jump in with you on that and let everybody know who's viewing this podcast. The practicing is very important. You can't stop. You can't do enough. You just can't do enough because you'll learn more and more about the skills that are embedded within the gestures, the eye contact, and the content. So I had to get in there. Go ahead.
No, I agree with everything you're saying, and I've done these cross examinations and opening statement scripts and voir dire scripts hundreds, if not thousand plus times. I just can't even imagine. I have no idea because prior to doing this class, we have 6 weeks of Zoom meetups where, we're all recording our crosses and each chunk and reviewing them with each other, and which is so critical to getting ready. And I keep working on improving the preparation process, and that's like I'm so excited about the next people that do these boot camps because of the changes in the preparation process, and creating the small groups and pairing people up ahead of time to practice with each other before they get there. And then having one of the coaches work with a group of 4 or 5 of the students. So that way they have, more accountability and one person that's helping them if they're having trouble, so that every week that their performance on their videos they submit is much better, because then they're building on a higher level of skills instead of, because it's a struggle. I guess I know it only because I've struggled my whole life at stuff, but it's harder for me to really appreciate the level of struggle it is for the new student. And that's why, I got to recognize that and recognize time constraints too, because people tell me how busy they are. And I'm like, yeah, we're all busy. No shit. You mean you have other things to do other than practice these skills? Get out of town. But you got to practice if you want to be great. But the new preparation methodology that we're doing for the next boot camps coming up is because the next one coming up is in Big Sky, Montana at Nick Rowley's Big Easy Lodge. So that's kind of like a ski and training boot camp from February 8th through 15th, which I'm super stoked about because I've never been to Big Sky. There. And I've never been to, Rowley's place. I've known the guy for 20 freaking years since we went to the Trial Lawyers College together in 2003. Let's see. But I'm looking forward to that. But it's really important, like as I was saying, to imagine the cross. So Alejandro, between the last time you did this boot camp a few months ago with Joe Fried and this time, what were your new insights on cross?
So one of the things that new setup you did was great. The buddy system where you had us kind of like pair up and help people in our local communities and stuff like that was great, because I tend to look at it with a lawyer brain a lot of times, tend to overcomplicate things sometimes, but taking away and sitting in the witness box and seeing it presented actually drove home a lot of the points, like the choppiness of the hands, the fact that the hand is supposed to be, you just kind of want it to be there where your mind doesn't really like bring it up to you. It doesn't call it into attention, but it's there. You realize when it's dropped, you realize when it's moving correctly. Like you get to really experience it from the juror's side. And then going into everything else that we've been talking about, it's crazy how sometimes these things kind of seem so, anti-normal, antithesis or whatever. But at the end of the day, they're so more in line with how regular people behave on a day-to-day basis. Like if you look at the cross, the foundation of the cross and how important it is. I mean, if you ever get in trouble at home or in your personal life, it usually happens that way. Like, if something's gone on, they don't just go, oh, I know you did this and this. It's like, where were you on this date? Who were you with? What were you doing? Like you get set up for it, because that's what really has the power to drive the message home. Like it's not, I got you. It's you lied to me about it and I got you about it, And if you're just able to kind of take away the lawyer brain a little bit and start looking at things from the view of how the jury's actually going to come into that room, like you always talk about, meet them where they are. If we're able to do that, it just helps the whole, first of all, understanding why we're doing it. why it can be so effective. And then it really lets you lean into how to do that presentation the right way.
Be sure to join us in Winter Park, Colorado, March 14th through 21st. We're going to be doing a ski and trial skills boot camp. So we'll be skiing every day, but in the morning and in the evenings, we'll be working on your trial skills. That means witness prep and direct examination, cross-examination, presentation skills, which are opening statement and closing argument, and of course, jury selection. And remember that your entire tuition will be donated to the fight against Uber in California, because they're trying to destroy our civil justice system. And they're starting with California, but if they win here, your state may be next. So join the fight and come to Winter Park. And you actually went and worked with Spencer Ehrenfeld in Miami, and like that was your first time, being in the role of a teacher of these skills. Would that be true?
Yeah, because I had done the switching in and out of witnesses and stuff, but actually coaching someone through the video replay, like we would do, I would mirror my phone and then we'd look at it on the screen after he did it. We'd redo it. It really allowed us to get into the minutia of it. And it's like everything else in life. Like I would tell him too, he's like, thank you for helping. I'm like, this is selfish of me. Because at the end of the day, I was getting about as much back, if not more than he was. Because the whole time I'm correcting him, I'm correcting myself, but I'm also driving home the points because it's what we do with the jurors and the witnesses. If we could get them to convey the message we want, whether in voir dire or during cross or direct, and we get it to come from them, it's a lot more powerful of a message because they feel that it's their messaging that they've brought forth and they've adopted. Now they're championing it, and it's the same concept when you're teaching.
I asked this performer, he was a Cirque du Soleil performer. I was at Thanksgiving dinner with him at my buddy's house because his wife used to be a performer in Vegas too. And I said to him, because he's had all these broken bones and he's only making like 50 grand a year, killing himself out there. And now he's retired and he's got a lot of, pain, I'm sure, like a football player does from all the broken bones, and makes a lot more money than he used to. So I asked him, I said, I don't get it. What was the greatest part about performing? And he looked at me for a moment, and you know what he said? Performing. And so being the performer, being the center of the audience. But the greatest thing about being a teacher is being the teacher, because you're getting the most reps, and you're getting, when we focus outside of ourselves on others, that's when we really get better. Then we're forced to articulate everything and demonstrate it over and over to make sure the student gets it. And that's what it's about, because I want all of you to be great, not to be good, to be great, to be the best, to be the top trial lawyer, where you live, in your state, in the country. And to do that, you have to train, you have to practice. But the best way to practice is by paying it forward. And so, part of the agreement was that everybody that came to this would have not only the skills, but the confidence to lead a workshop in their communities. And along those lines, let me ask you, Alejandro, so people get a hold of you when you start your workshop, can you tell can you give us your cell phone and your email so that people in the Miami and our friend Sagi Shaket is coming to the next boot camp too, finally. And I told him, don't you worry, Sagi. We've Sagi-proofed this boot camp. Jai's a buddy of Sagi's too.
Yeah.
Because Sagi he's very successful, like crazy successful. Extremely successful. And it's weird how the more successful a trial lawyer you get, Mohamad, you'd hard to believe it, but the less inclined they are to train and practice sometimes. But I told Sagi, I said, we've Sagi-proofed our process. And I said, I've cared about you so much, Sagi. I have so much love for you in my heart that I recruited somebody from Miami that will actually give you the kind of personalized attention that you require. Because we got to take baby steps with Sagi. And so I said, we got my man Alejandro Gonzalez coming live to you in Miami. So, but for the rest of the people that want to come train with you and Sagi, and Tomer, his son, is going to train too, because he's going to Georgetown Law School next year. So he's like, my son's a beast. I'm like, of course he is, Sagi. He's the greatest, smartest, best-looking kid that has ever born. He's like, you're right, Dan. Finally, you recognize these things. And so how do people get a hold of you, Alejandro?
Yeah, so anyone could check me out on Instagram. We have a good following there at Alejandro_el abogado. And then the cell phone number would be 305-962-9586. That's 305-962-9586. And you can find us online at phoenixlg.net.
And what's your email, buddy?
Oh, AGC Alpha Gamma Charlie at phoenixlg.net.
There you go. There you go. And how about everybody living in LA, Mohamad? Because you're about, lucky for you, I'm coming home. So I'm going to be able to co-host the things for you in Hermosa Beach. But for the people that don't want to come way down to Hermosa, that want to be in Santa Monica, how do people get a hold of you, Mohamad?
My cell phone is 310-948-7226. My email is M as in Mary, A at Kermani, LLP. That's KER, M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, I, LLP.com.
All right. I'll look at. And how about you, Johnnie Bond? How do we find you in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, absolutely. My cell phone number is 202-425-8472. My email is jbond, and BON as in Nancy, D as in David, at Bond PLLC. So that's BON as in Nancy, D as in David, P as in Paul, LLC.com.
All right. And Jared, how about yourself? If you're in Louisville, that's one word, one syllable, Louisville. How do you say it?
That's right. It's one syllable if you say it right. It's Louisville.
Louisville. All right. If people are in Kentucky and they want to get better.
Yeah, so I can be reached at 502-219-2525, 502-219-2525. Email is my first name, JARED, and this is all spelled out, KentuckyTrialLawyers.com.
All right, because I am looking forward to you guys starting these things up. So beyond with the stuff that we worked on in Cross, so on the performance skills, the key skills that we practice are, the eye contact. I'm going to say making appropriate eye contact. And so what I mean by that is when we stand up there and you got 12 or 14 people you're talking to micro-connect with those jurors, which means to look in their eyes for just a moment, and then move to the next juror. And so this way, because we have to get people comfortable making eye contact with us, but we can't sit with them too long, because if you do, it makes them uncomfortable. But if we learn how to make it in small doses and ramp it up, then they get comfortable with us, and then they want us to come back and actually connect with them. So that's the first thing, eye contact. Second thing is to train ourselves to make eye contact with somebody before we start talking to them, and then to pause for a moment when we're done and move to the next person, connect in their eyes, move at least one juror away, and kind of weave the jury together. And then lastly, as far as eye contact goes, that if we're going to create space to our right, then we'll start with the people to the left and make micro connections. We move from left to right. And so that way they end up kind of sweeping over to the right. And the same thing if we're going to create space to our left, because we got stage left, stage right, and stage center. This is the stage of performance for a trial lawyer in the well of the courtroom. And so basically it's like leading them across. It's hard to really discuss, I guess, visualize this stuff on a Zoom. But anyway, so let me ask you, Jared, eye contact, because you've done this program, I think, twice before, maybe three times before. And I understand you didn't know what it was all about the first time, but the second time you sure the hell did. And so you weren't a lot better back then either, just to let you know. So I don't want any more excuses, but what did you learn about eye contact, Jared?
Eye contact's, it's very important.
Okay, Jared, that was very profound. Can you give us any more than that?
No, eye contact's important because it lets the juror know that you care about them, frankly, and it lets them know that the information that you are espousing is important and that they should pay attention to it. But it also brings them in. So over the course of a trial and hundreds of micro connections with each juror, eventually, you form a group and they look at you as being credible and, frankly, as their leader.
May 19th through 23rd, we'll be doing the Case Story Bootcamp with Eric Oliver in Hermosa Beach, California. Eric will be working with participants and putting their trials together as a story. Myself and my other coaches will be working with you to help you become the greatest storytellers there ever were. We'll be working on presentation skills, which are opening statement and closing argument, cross-examination, witness prep and direct, and of course, jury selection or voir dire. So join us. Make your cases worth much more. And remember, your entire tuition will be donated to the fight against Uber, because they're trying to destroy our civil justice system, but we're going to team up. We're going to work together to stop them. All right. So beyond eye contact, we also practice, as I talked earlier, our hand movements. Because most lawyers, when they stand in front of a jury, they got both hands bouncing by their sides the whole time, which is crazy to me, because we can only connect with one juror at a time. So we have to train ourselves that when we're just connecting with one juror, we're talking to one juror, to use one hand and keep that hand between ourselves and our jurors, and it moves out towards the juror while we're talking. And at the end, it kind of opens up, releases, kind of delivering the concept or that one idea to the juror, pausing, resetting or relaxing, and finding that next juror and connect with that juror. And then again, with the use of our hands. But then if it's a group question, like, does this make sense to everybody? Then we'd use both hands. But again, that's when we're micro-connecting and looking at everybody with a curious face. So beyond that, then we got emotional state control, which is a big one. Because let's be honest, this is a high-pressure job. And it's nerve-wracking for everybody when you first stand up there in front of that jury. It's nerve-wracking. And when most people are nervous, it shows on their face. Their faces are tight. And instead of saying good morning to everybody, they have this serious look on their face, like it's a shitty day. Instead of looking at people and face slowly getting warm, being, good morning, everybody. And having a warm face and holding that warm face until you wait for the jurors to say good morning back to you. See, it's a back and forth conversation. And then we say, and welcome back. And again, look everybody in the eyes again, micro-connecting with that warm face. It's shocking how challenging that is for people, how much practice it takes for people. Mohamad, can you speak to this? Because, you often walk around with that slightly glum face. And I told you to practice having an RBW. That's called RWF, not RBF, resting warm face. See, there's Mohamad's resting warm face. So, Mohamad, what are your insights on keeping a warm face and showing those teeth when you say good morning to everybody?
What Dan really is trying to ask is how not to be the angry Arab in the courtroom. Jenny, listen to me. My client needs the money. So I think what happens is when you get in front of a jury, in California, we have 12 plus 2 or 4 alternates. So there's 16 people. It becomes overwhelming to be like, who do I talk to? Who do I look at? And so you're kind of looking for that warm face and you get stuck to them. And so the good thing about this program is it forces you to mechanically apply what Jared was talking about, which is making the micro connections. But what does that mean? That means practicing looking at everybody and taking the patience to look at everybody, scan them. And then when you are talking to one person, like you told Brian Panish, wait, make sure you're connected, then start talking, wait, make sure you disconnect, and then leave them. So I think that's why it takes so much practice, because we're not used to that. We're not talking to 16 people at once or 12, and we're not communicating something that's so important with so much stakes on the line, so many, high stakes on the line all the time. So I think that's the best part about this program. Like I said, it makes you feel uncomfortable in the moment, but hopefully that uncomfort becomes then comfortable in practice and then translates into the courtroom. Every trial I go to, at least twice or 3 times, I hear from the judge, Mr. Ahmad, nobody can hear what you're saying. Speak up. And that's because I stopped breathing. I got nervous. My voice trailed off. And so micro focus on each one of these skills so that when you get in, it's unconscious again.
Right. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but really the philosophy of this whole program is to make the unconscious conscious. There was some philosopher, he said, until you can make the unconscious conscious, you will call that fate and it will rule your life. I can't remember who said that, but my mentor and friend, Dave Clark, who I teach this dark arts program with, actually we're going to be doing it right before the TLU Beach Bootcamp in June. But when I first met him, he's like, hey, show me a criminal defense voir dire. And so I showed him my presumption of innocence voir dire, which I had, used like hundreds of times, a lot, I developed over the course of trying a lot of cases. And after I showed it to him, he goes, does that shit work for you? And I'm like, I think so. I've only lost 2 cases out of the last 100 jury trials. And so he goes, any idea why it works? And of course, I'm like, no. He goes, when you can make the unconscious conscious, you're going to be fucking dangerous. In the civil world, we call that rich. And of course, I'm, a criminal defense lawyer, basically a public defender at that time, making probably about 60 grand a year and, struggling, but I was happy. I was just, just making ends meet, but doing my thing. And, but of course, I didn't realize he was manipulating me to want him to be my teacher. Cause of course, I'm like, I want to be rich. I'm tired of being poor. It's not fun. I mean, it was fun, but it's not as fun. And so anyways, it's about making the unconscious conscious. And to do that, you have to break down the skills that you're working to master into their smallest, tiniest parts, and then identify, isolate, and train those parts. But the challenging thing with becoming a trial lawyer is you could ask the 10 greatest trial lawyers in the country, hey, what skills do I need to master to do this, to get to the top like you are? Because I used to ask that question at every podcast. And you know what I got? A different answer from every single person. Because all those people at the top, they had a mentor and they just did a lot of trials and kind of figured it out as they went along. And so for them to be able to articulate what it is they did, they can't, because they weren't consciously, most of them were not consciously pursuing this journey or pursuing the skills like we are. And so they can't even articulate how they did it. And so a lot of them are great trial lawyers, but terrible teachers. And there's so many people that teach that they're not even interested in teaching. They're just interested in showing people how great they are so they can send them their cases. And I get it. You know what I mean? And the reality is that for, in a lot of cases, I mean, we're better off partnering with somebody when we're on our way up. But hopefully that person we partner with is going to teach us how they do it, is going to mentor us, and is going to want us to be free one day and not just, trying to create like a pipeline for them so that whenever we get a big case, we bring it to them. That's not the kind of mentors I want to develop, not the kind of mentors I want in my life. And I don't, and I think that's probably true for most people. You want mentors who are going to teach you and empower you to be free of them one day, right? Just like being a parent. You don't want your kids to rely on you the whole time as much as you love them. You want them to be free and not need you, as hard as it may be, to let go. And so, anyways, I should have mentioned that earlier, but I got a brain fart. I'm getting older. I'm 58. I'm getting up there. Well, I see that he's making up for my these obvious shortcomings and incapacitations that he could see me suffering every day that goes by. I appreciate you looking out for me, Johnny. And so, Jared, do you get the memo? This is the Trial Lawyers University program. Notice everybody's got a T-shirt except you, buddy. Or you got to stand out.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm still doing laundry after the flight home.
That's okay, Jared. We appreciate you anyways. And so
I appreciate you. I found your quote, Dan. It's Carl Jung. He's the philosopher. And it's, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And I'm not telling you what to do, Dan, but that would be a hell of a phrase to put on the back of one of your T-shirts. But you do you. I like it.
The quote you have on the back is better. What was the Muhammad Ali? I hated every minute of the training. Yeah.
Be sure to join us March 3rd through 7th in Las Vegas. We'll be doing a boot camp with Kimball Jones. Kimball has had an outstanding record of winning. He's got over $800 million in verdicts and settlements in the last year. He will help you put your case story together, frame your case. We will help you improve every aspect of trial performance, from the opening statement, closing argument, to voir dire, witness prep, and direct examination and cross-examination. Remember, your entire tuition will be donated to the fight against Uber, or you can use it as a case expense because we'll be working on your case throughout the boot camp. We'll see you there. What he said, I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion. But I like the Bruce Lee quote too, which is, I don't fear the man that practices 10,000 kicks one time. I fear the man who practices one kick 10,000 times. And that's kind of what this program is kind of like. It's kind of like that Karate Kid, because when I used to teach this Trojan Horse program many before the pandemic, which none of you did. Thank you for ignoring me all those years, guys. I'm not hurt though. But I used to show.
I did it one time. The Trojan Horse case analysis. Yeah, with Crystal.
Well, that wasn't Trojan. You did. Mohamad was at the very first case analysis. That was May 30. I think it was May 31st, 2019 up in San Francisco, because I met Chris at this Havana room, the Grand Havana room. It's a cigar bar in Beverly Hills. And he was telling me about this trial that he did and all these things he did. I'm like, that's freaking brilliant. And then I'm like, hey, do you want to do like a one-day seminar? I'll get like 100 people together and you can come tell them how great you are. I mean, that's basically what I say. And he's like, it's amazing how you get trial lawyers that, you know, after they got a verdict, that want to like, they're like, you know what? As a humble servant of justice, I will do it. And so that got everything started. So Chris Dolan's always an OG at TLU, but that's where Mohamad and I first met. So those were good times.
Chris suffers from complex regional pain syndrome, but he didn't even take like a 5-minute break for the 6 hours or whatever it was. He powered through it, talked to us during lunch, poor guy did not, it was like a celebrity, he didn't get a break or anything. So props to Chris.
It's tough being so much in demand, though, Mohamad. One day we'll experience that, and we won't be able to take breaks either. That's what happens when Mohamad speaks at Trial Lawyers University. He's just swarmed by people, and they get to get a break, and he's exhausted, but he fights, he struggles through it for the good of society, right, Mohamad?
No, I have something Chris doesn't have, the Arab accent. So I call in a bomb threat, everyone disperses, and I get my 10-minute break, you know?
All right, that's very clever. It's very funny, Mohamad. Mohamad's a very funny guy. I don't know if anybody picked up on this through this podcast yet, but that's why I keep him around, because it was entertainment factor. And so we teach the performance skills and then the voir dire skills. So with the voir dire, we teach the because like the voir dire, we practice during the boot camps. We practice 3 chunks of voir dire. The first one is called beginning the process. The second one is biases defined. And the third one is brutal honesty, sort of like a kind of Nick Rowley's thing that we kind of modified a little bit. But, and the way we teach it, I think it really hones in on those skills of the eye contact, the emotional state control, the hand movement, the voice control, the connection. And because we're going to be wrapping this up here in a minute or two, but I just want everybody to know, anybody that wants to, I guess, look further into this without putting themselves out there too far, well, you can call any of these guys here. They're the best ones to give you insights on this program, or email them, whichever you prefer. But also, if you do not have TLU on demand, if you shoot me an email or text, my phone number is 248-808-3130. And my email is dan@triallawyeruniversity.com. I will send you a 30-day complimentary access, because it's also an app for your phone, so that you can learn anywhere, anytime. And the people that do the program, I think it really helps them a lot too, because then they can listen to the audio, or even if they don't watch the video of the materials, so that way it can kind of practice in your mind. Because the practice of the fundamentals is so important. Because as I was saying, we used to do the Trojan Horse program. I used to show the Karate Kid video, wax on, wax off, because he didn't understand why he had to do these basics over and over and over until he fought for the first time. And he was like, wax on, wax off. And it was like, did you see that, Mohamad? Wax on, wax off. And so then you understand why you have to practice the fundamentals over and over and over and over, so you could do them without thinking. And then I also used to show people the Matrix video, at the end of it, when he finally realizes that he is the one, because he's always been the one, but he had so much self-doubt that he could never self-actualize. It was only when he believed in himself. And I think it's, so critical for the trial lawyer, is confidence, the belief in ourselves that, seriously, like 80% of the game, maybe even more of that, lies between the ears in the mental game of trial, of the mental game of confidence, and which will, the training and the practices will lead us to being relaxed, because we can only connect with others when we're truly relaxed. And that's the key part of it. And the one other aspect that we teach, other than cross, the performance skills, and the voir dire, is the witness prep and direct, which I think is so critical. And, to really help people visualize the story. On the last podcast I did with Kimball Jones, I went through it in pretty good detail. So hopefully people listen to that one, because we're going to wrap it up here, guys, even though we have, we just kind of touched on the surface.
Yeah.
But I hope that we'll all keep training. John, give us your final thoughts.
No, I'm going to do you a favor. All right? I'm going to do everybody's watching this a favor.
Man.
All right?
Johnny, you're always such a servant of justice.
Hey, Dan offered TLU demand free for 30 days. All right? He made the same offer for me. In fact, it was longer than 30 days. By the 15th day, I went and paid for the subscription. All right. So what I'm going to do, Dan, is I'm going to stay on the TLU demand a little bit longer than you did because I think it's such a great treasure trove of information for attorneys who are serious about this. It'll up your game. You've got people like Satch Oliver breaking down his depositions or trial. You've got John Romanos. You've got Brian Panish breaking down his closing argument by different modules. If you don't live on TLU demand, I don't know what you're really trying to do with your legal career if you're a trial lawyer. So I'm gonna say fuck that, Dan. Pay for TLU demand because it's worth it. All right. So that's my plug on the TLU demand.
All right. Well, thank you, Johnny. That was a good final thought. Alejandro, your final closing thoughts here on the coaching boot camp, the things you're learning as you're on this journey of becoming the champion of the courtroom.
I think for anyone that's out there considering, TLU in any aspect of TLU, they need to stop thinking about it and just do it. I mean, there's a lot to the program, but I mean, this is the second official boot camp that I do. It won't be the last. There's very few scenarios that we actually get to rep and practice as lawyers. I mean, yeah, you could do focus groups, but you do your focus group and you control the data. You could kind of make it come out how you want and the opinions you want. This is a little bit of a different environment where, especially in the group we had, we self-corrected a lot and we got into each other's stuff a lot, like what Mohamad was saying. And it's such a great experience and so good to build your own confidence and to get those reps and to get those practices so that when you are in court, you're just a little bit less nervous. You're a little bit more used to it. It becomes second nature. There's that muscle memory. And then it just starts happening easier and smoother and more natural.
All right. Jared Smith, our boy from Kentucky.
Yeah. Everything everyone said is so true. But for those of you who are able to read between the lines, one huge benefit of coming to Trial Lawyers University boot camps is the community and networking and really building a group of attorney friends that are all operating at a very high level, who are trying to work on themselves and take themselves to the next level, and really bonding with each other and having people across the country to call, right? When you have questions, maybe when you have a case, when you don't know where to take it, things like that. So yes, TLU Bootcamp is wonderful for your performance skills. It's wonderful, in order to be able to present to a jury and bring that case to life. And it's also wonderful, breathe, pause, to build your network in your community as a trial lawyer.
This is true. And my man Mohamad Ahmad from Los Angeles.
All right, I'll end with a story about Phillip Rivers. So Phillip Rivers came back to the NFL, and he played the 49ers recently. He did pretty well, but on one play he threw a pick six, I think to a linebacker. He waited till after the game. He goes to that linebacker on the 49ers, and he said, "Hey, props on picking me off." Then he said, "Hey, you figured that out because I did the same play earlier on the opposite side, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I saw you had done that on the opposite side, and then you did the same thing on this side, and I read it, and I intercepted it." And so it was kind of shocking how brilliant Phillip Rivers was in knowing that, but that's because he's done thousands of hours of film study and game room, so he didn't even need to wait till the end of the game to watch himself. TLU, I feel, allows you to do that in the sense that they film you, you get to see it right then and there, and then it gets to the point where while you're doing it, you kind of say, oh, okay, I made this mistake. I know why I made this mistake because I wasn't breathing. Or I know why I made this mistake because I rushed, or I didn't pause, or I didn't micro-connect. And so you start catching yourself, and it was kind of cool to see Phillip Rivers, who's like a veteran, pick up why he made that mistake and not blame it on just, oh, that guy came out of nowhere, or there's no explanation for why that happened. He not only knew the explanation, but he knew it was something that he had done earlier in the game, and he made the connection, and then he learned from it. So if Phillip Rivers is learning, and he's a Hall of Famer, then there's no excuse for us not to learn in our craft, which is telling stories to juries and bringing our client story to life, as Jared said earlier.
This is all true, and after you get the basics down, you start to get comfortable. It's like the real next level of learning is when we can start self-coaching, when we start self-correcting, we can see ourselves for who we really are. and feel when we make those mistakes, as you say, when you're not breathing or you're rushing or you're, closing your eyes or looking away, and the weird stuff that we all do. I always tell people, like, my main job here is to help you see all those quirks that each one of us has, which is different, and to identify those and to recognize them, and then give you the process to eliminate them from your repertoire, from who you are, so that you could connect with, not just with juries. And this is, you want to be high level, you have to practice all the time. You have to practice every day. And we get to practice every day because that's what we're doing every day. We're connecting with people. If we just slow down and make eye contact with everybody we talk to, if we are intentional with our emotional states, we were talking to the clerk at the counter of the restaurant, or the person who's going to seat us, and saying, hey, can we get seated today? I mean, do you have any seats open? Instead of like, do you have a seat available? Or the clerk, can you tell me where I can find the milk? And practice having that warm face. See if we can affect their emotional state. If we can get them to smile back at us with our emotional state. That's the practice every day. So, all right, guys, I hope you have a great new year, and I look forward to seeing y'all in 2026. Maybe at a boot camp, but at the very worst, June 3rd through 6th at TLU Huntington Beach, because there's going to be over 1,000 people there, and it really is going to be the greatest conference ever. And then people that want to, like, if anybody doesn't get a chance to do a boot camp between now and then, you'll have an opportunity where we're doing a boot camp the 5 days before TLU Beach. Mohamad was there last year with Dave Clark. But throughout the conference, there's workshops every day. And so you can do half-day trainings on the voir dire, half-day trainings on cross, half-day trainings on witness prep and direct, half-day trainings on performance skills. So you can kind of get like an introduction to them to see if it's something you really connect with and something that will help you get to the next level. Because I think, so many of us are willing to do the work. We just have to know what the work is. Because if you spend a lot of time, you spend endless hours, or in some cases 3 weeks, Jared, no references intended, doing quote unquote work that's not productive. Well, you just spent 3 weeks of your life and you thought you got a lot better until you walk into the courtroom, you're just as nervous, and you get shellacked because if you don't learn the skills of being a trial lawyer, the courtroom's not going to be any more friendly of a place. And so we'll leave it at that, and I hope the best for everybody. So, anybody needs us, we're here for you. All right, guys. Hope you have a great rest of the year. I'll see you next year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you, Dan.
Happy
Great
New Year,
seeing
everybody.
everyone. Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year's.
Later. Bye.
Ready to train with the Titans and set records with your verdicts? Register for our live conferences and boot camps at triallawyersuniversity.com. Start getting your reps in before the big event by going to tluondemand.com to gain instant access to live lectures, case analysis, and skills training videos from the trial lawyer champions you love and respect, as well as pleadings, transcripts, PowerPoints, and notes for a roadmap to victory. Join the group that continues to get extraordinary results. Trial Lawyers University, produced and powered by LawPods.